they had all of the big pangerums from the vaccine industry, from the pharmaceutical industry, from the universities, who are the ones who test the vaccines, from NIH, CDC, FDA, the World Health Organization, the European Medicals Agency, and they all got together for 2 days to talk about this study. And somebody made a transcript of it. But the first day, they're all talking about, oh my God, the lawyers are going to come after us. Nobody can deny this. This is bulletproof. There's no way to argue with this. This is real science. We can't, what are we going to do? The second day, they spent talking about how to hide it from the American public. It's 11.35, so it's 1,135% increased risk for a later subsequent autism diagnosis if you got in the first 30 days. Congress said to EPA, tell us what year this epidemic started, and EPA came back and said it's a red line, 1989.
So the CDC had secret meetings with the EPA as well as other vaccine procurers and producers, etc., as well as, the agencies that are supposed to be regulating them, right? Where they discussed that their thoughts that the rise or the significant rise of autism in the US came from vaccines, ones that big pharma companies made in and around 1989.
Allegedly.
As they also did this in a private sector. Mind you, they also did this so that way, the people couldn't do an FOIA request. So why exactly would they do this, you feel me, if they had nothing to hide? What did they not want out exactly? Now, for anyone new here, by the way, you guys, we are A-okay with vaccines. I'm all for them. I used to get them when I was a kid and all that stuff. I might be more holistic medicine and practitioner now, and more on the spiritual side of things and all the more ancient practices that our ancestors used and the monks used. However, though, I'm not going to discredit the vaccines do work. My only stance is that I want them to be safe, effective, and healthy for people with minimal side effects, unlike what the ones we have now. It can help cure things, you feel me, or prevent things, but the ones we're having right now arguably are not really the healthiest. They're just like a lot of the pharmaceutical grade drugs that people take too, with small amounts of benefits and just a sheet full of fucking side effects and essentially bad things, which is just fucked up in general, you feel me? So in this video, we're going to take a look at an interview that happened with RFK Jr. discussing the transcripts that he published to the Rolling Stones back in 2005 when they were still, pretty punk rock and roll and not just being a fucking tool or a bitch of the system like they are now. So before we go and get into this though, cue intro.
And if you ask any questions about vaccines, particularly during COVID, you were marginalized and vilified. You were gaslighted. People who were injured and who publicly said they were injured were gaslighted. They were told, no, you weren't. You're lying. Doctors, scientists who tried to explore alternatives to the prevailing to the received orthodoxy. Their careers were destroyed. They lost their, insurance policies, their hospital affiliations, their university affiliations, and they were vilified.
So we've discussed that on this channel before, how people were basically ostracized, blacklisted, banned, labeled as straight horrible fucking people just because they questioned the efficacy of these vaccines that were produced or the narrative around COVID in general, you feel me, and just thinking independently, which is a part of the scientific process, mind you. But the system doesn't want you guys to do that. The elites, the corrupt legacy media, and all their big tech companies and big business buddies, they don't want you guys thinking about that stuff because, well, if you would have realized that they were basically making money while fucking everybody else over. And yeah, a lot of people died because of the stupid shit that they did.
Allegedly.
Plenty of evidence out there to prove that stuff and how many people were injured by those vaccines. There's also, again, a big CDC-funded worldwide study that addresses those problems within the first dosage of the COVID-19 vaccines and their boosters, which, mind you, it gets significantly worse with each booster you get.
Allegedly.
So I've been going through this since 2005, when I published in Rolling Stone an article about a meeting. I published the transcriptions of a secret meeting that CDC had conducted in 2001 called Simpsonwood, when they realized that the vaccination program was linked to the epidemic of autism. And they had done an internal study of the largest medical database called the Vaccine Safety Data Link. And CDC brought in a Belgian biostatistician and epidemiologist called Thomas Verstraeten. And he had to look at the thing that they looked at. This database is the top, it's all the patients of the top HMOs, and the 10 top HMOs, so it has millions of patients in it. And it has all of their vaccine records, but it also has all their subsequent medical claims. So you can do a cluster analysis, and you can see, if he got the DTP vaccine here, is he more likely to be buying insulin syringes for diabetes 5 years later? So it's a really good tool of figuring out causal links between certain exposures and, later medical claims. And they looked at kids who they were suspected at that time, that the CDC suspected internally, at the vaccine program, they had gone from the 3 vaccines that I took as a kid to 72 vaccines. And all of a sudden, you had epidemics of all these chronic diseases. So food allergies suddenly appeared around 1989. Peanut allergies, stuff that, I never heard of anybody who had this stuff as a kid.
All right, so that's a really interesting point, you guys. If you think about how many vaccines people need to get now versus back in the day, you feel me? And RFK goes farther in to discuss this, but they used to be really exotic diseases when he was a kid, you feel me? Not very common at all. And it shot from having 3 vaccines and stuff like that, something probably like measles, tetanus shot, and then one other one, you feel me? All the way up to like 70 plus. It's a really significant increase, you feel me, on vaccines. What exactly caused that huge jump in that, and why exactly did it happen? Why was it necessary?
All these neurological disorders, ADD, ADHD, speech delay, language delay, tics, Tourette syndrome, narcolepsy, ASD, autism. Autism went from 1 in 10,000 for 2,500, 1 in 2,500 to 1 in 10,000, depending on the studies. In my generation, 70-year-old men, the amount of autism, full-blown autism in people my age, I literally have never met anybody my age with full-blown autism. And today, it's 1 in every 10,000 of us.
Do you think...
But with my kids, it's 1 in every 22 boys, 1 in every 34 kids. Something happened. And Congress directed the EPA. Congress said to EPA, tell us what year this epidemic started. And the EPA came back and said it's a red line, 1989.
Very interesting thing for them to say, right, you guys? The fact that it's just a solid red line, 1989 is when these issues started happening. And such a huge increase in amount of vaccines needed for people. If you think about it, like how much healthier people were back in RFK Jr.'s time. We were one of the healthiest nations in the world. We also had some of the top fucking scholar records or like schooling scores in the world. Whereas now I'd argue it's very bad. It makes you think, right? The fact of the matter that they said that it was this point in time when these vaccines start rolling out, or like more of these vaccines start rolling out and stuff like that, which makes you kind of question what all they put inside them. You feel me? Now, mind you, I'm gonna say it's also a varying degree of other things as well, too.
Those diseases, all these autoimmune diseases suddenly appeared. I never knew anybody with juvenile diabetes. When I was a kid, A typical pediatrician would see one case of juvenile diabetes in his career. Today, 1 out of every 3 kids who walk through his office door has it. Something happened. Why isn't anybody talking about this? Rheumatoid arthritis suddenly exploded, lupus, all these autoimmune diseases, Crohn's disease, these exotic diseases nobody ever heard of when I was a kid. Now they're everywhere. And so you have allergic diseases, you have neurological diseases and autoimmune diseases, and obesity suddenly appear around 1989. And so there's a number of things that could be blamed for it. Well, the CDC thought it may be the vaccine schedule. Let's check.
So they thought that it might be the vaccines, you feel me? And this was back in 2005. You actually could question vaccine efficacy still and, what all was going into it, you feel me? Because, well, that's what you're supposed to do as a human being and as a doctor in general, especially if you're going to get put inside yourself or any of your family members or people you care about. You got to check the ingredients, right? It's just like the food you buy at the store. People don't do that much anymore neither. I also know too because, well, my brain's like, oh, there shouldn't be anything unhealthy inside my food. FDA 50% funded by the, companies it's supposed to regulate and the big pharmaceutical corporations, which literally give poisonous things to people or things that have poisoned people, etc. And it's like 20 years down the line at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Oh boy, 3 a.m.
Did you take this drug and do you now have vagina cancer and testicular cancer or lung cancer, or do you have pulmonary arthritis because you took this drug? Well, you can get compensation now. Stuff like that, you feel me? The FDA, we're supposed to trust them. I used to do the same shit. Shouldn't trust them when they literally take bribes from the fucking corporations. They're supposed to be regulating, and a lot of those corporations, drugs get approved first time around, which isn't really logical when it comes to science and testing. If you know anything about it, it generally takes several trials and errors before you get a product that's well-rounded and actually helpful and has more benefits than it does side effects.
So they looked at one vaccine, which is the hepatitis B vaccine. They looked at kids who had gotten it in the first 30 days, and then they looked at kids who had not gotten it in 30 days. In other words, kids who got it later or didn't get it at all. And they compared these two groups. And among the kids who got it in the first 30 days, there was a 11.35, so it's 1,135% increased risk for a later subsequent autism diagnosis if you got in the first 30 days.
Wow.
So they immediately knew what was causing it. It's called a relative risk of 11.35. If you have a relative risk of 2, causation is presumed. This was 11.35. They had an emergency meeting that they called. They didn't want to do it on CDC campus because they thought it would be susceptible to Freedom of Information requests.
They were scared of people requesting a Freedom of Information Act request, you guys. So they felt the need to go to a private location to discuss this stuff. They're hiding something. They don't want people to do a Freedom of Information Act request. They're trying to hide shit.
So they did it in this remote retreat center called Simpsonwood, which is a Methodist retreat center on the wooded banks of the Chattahoochee River in a remote part of Georgia. And they had all of the big pangerums from the vaccine industry, from the pharmaceutical industry, from the universities, who are the ones who test the vaccines, from NIH, CDC, FDA, the World Health Organization, the European Medicals Agency, and they all got together for 2 days to talk about this study.
How ironic. All those places that tell us to just blindly trust them got together and were talking about potential vaccine issues, and they were a little worried, trying to hide things from people. Very interesting.
The first day, and somebody made a transcript of it, and that transcript was given to me. And I published excerpts from it. But the first day, they're all talking about, oh my God, the lawyers are going to come after us. Nobody can deny this. This is bulletproof. There's no way to argue with this. This is real science. We can't, what are we going to do? The second day, they spent talking about how to hide it from the American public. I published these things. Oh, then, I took a lot of heat at that point. But I was like, I'm not against vaccines. I vaccinated all my kids. I was fully vaccinated. I just think they ought to be tested, and we ought to know what the risks are and what the outcomes are.
RFK Jr. had a point. We should know what's inside our vaccine. The benefits should well outweigh the risks and the side effects, shouldn't they? I'm all for vaccines as long as they're, full of good, healthy ingredients and, actually have more benefits than they do risks and side effects. Again, they were really worried that the public was going to find out about it. Don't you guys find that a little peculiar? They're trying to hide something from you guys. Whenever they're that fucking worried about it, RFK Jr. doesn't lie about this shit, you guys. He's been a fucking lawyer for I don't know how many fucking years, but he's an environmental lawyer and the man doesn't lie about shit like this. It's really peculiar. Places like the World Health Organization, which we saw how well things went when it led the last pandemic, and how many people died because of that exactly, and their recommendations, quite a lot of people. There's a lot of stuff coming out to prove that a lot of us conspiracy theorists were right about a lot of things, such as the issues with the vaccines and how they're not really tested very well when it came to COVID-19.
Allegedly.
Also, by the way, you guys, they have illegal indemnity too, so they can't be held responsible for any of the injuries that they cause. They have a whole vaccine court to basically just push people away and shove things under the rug. It should really tell you a lot about the current representation of our vaccine industry. That's enough about what I think. What do you guys think, my adoring tribe members, new viewers, etc.? Let us know in the comments section down below. We'd love to hear your guys' thoughts and concerns about this stuff and what, you guys think about the things that you heard. RFK Jr. did upload them in 2005 to the Rolling Stones online, so they should be up still. I'll have to double check. Either way, I encourage you to do research on this stuff yourself. We're for vaccines and everything like that, but we just want them to be healthy vaccines for people, you feel me? Like, I'm gonna tell you that you can sit there and cure a lot of things just by improving your thought process, your mind, and thinking more positive, you feel me, which in turn reduces inflammation in the body and helps you relax more. And then also you eat healthier food, not bullshit, you feel me, all the ultra processed foods, and you exercise and generally don't have to worry about that much, you feel me? But yeah, no, like, vaccines definitely can help people that don't want to do that stuff that I do their own thing, you feel me? As long as it's healthy, and all the benefits outweighs the side effects by a great number, I'm all for it, you feel me? Like I said, I'd go get a vaccine if it prevented me from getting HIV or AIDS or herpes or something, you feel me? I'm all for that. In case you guys haven't already, don't forget to hit that like button and destroy the shit out of the subscribe button, or else likely to miss out on the conspiracy facts, dark humor, and all-around good vibes. Either way, though, my dudes, I appreciate you guys very much. Thank you, much love, and if you guys did make it to this point in the video, go and leave the word exposed in the comment section down below to let me know that you made it to the end and that you guys were the 1,000,000% tribe. As usual, though, my dudes, until next time, please don't forget to live long, prosper, take care in peace, keep it 1,000,000% real, and as always, fuck the system. I'll see you guys on the flip side. Z Tribe. You.
People of this country and we're under attack. They banning us, they cancel us for speaking the facts. If you man enough, come stand with us, take USA back. And every time we pull up, all you're gonna see is a man.